we are not a quorum, so we'll just begin a brief discussion of charter issues or anything in particular on your mind you think we should be getting to that we're not, or we will get to when we're done with the first review.
So, I mean, I'll kick off, just reflecting on what we've been doing so far. I love it. We're just going through the document section by section, having discussions where necessary, putting some of the big ticket items into the parking lot that will require deeper thought.
Yeah.
And, so I love the process so far, and I hope that we keep doing it. And then I look forward to the next section, maybe where we either dive into an issue with a very strong debate discussion, or we break into subgroups. Either way, but I'm looking forward to it.
I like the parking lot analogy.
Yeah.
We've got someone a holding pen. I spoke to Jesse, the reporter, was asking for sort of an update about everything, and I sort of did my best with it. But I kind of described that we were going through, and then we would have debates on the bigger issues we've identified.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, what's caught your attention?
Well, my attention is, first off, I'm, impressed with this group of people the supervisors put together, and that I think it's a delight to listen and learn. And there's no quote game playing or ideologues, which is just delightful. Not that we need to agree on everything, and that's perfectly fine, but I think the quality of the discourse is just great. And I think going through what we've been doing, I agree with all that Matt just said. Now, I also think, if I'm the guy who sometimes thinks of these big issues, if I'm going to think about that, I need to do some homework, and like call a couple of people I know back in my hometown, one who's a member of the representative town committee, which I find intriguing, and to say, okay, let's talk about it. And also, I have a friend, the son of my best friend at the foundation, lives in Brantford, and talk with Ty Wenger is his name, and see what he can tell me, and just do some homework, not at these meetings. And I'm not necessarily in favor of that. I think if this group is a bias, if anything, it's a status quo bias. But there's a good reason for that, as I think it was Mr. Wilson said at one point. What problem are you trying to fix?
Right.
And that's a good question. I mean, this town is not falling apart. It's not, but you got to think of, and as you know, I come up with these weird, what would happen if? And some of that you do need to think about as a charter commission. We're talking about a framework. We want to have a framework that's, the hypotheses are not what happens if the Martians come, which is unlikely, but something that, we could have a problem with that. And let's, set it up to have a situation that we would deal with it in a fair, efficient manner. That's my two cents.
I was actually
we're doing well. I'm learning a lot, guys. They're tolerant.
I was actually quoting you to the reporter on one of the things you keep pointing out is the charter should be user friendly to somebody who doesn't know what it is. The accessibility to it. So I think that's been very good. I think that one of the things we'll have to consider, I very much like this front to back process. I didn't realize it till we were well into it, that I don't think any commission's ever done it that anyone can remember. So that goes back a couple of decades. So one thing in terms of Bruce's question, what problem we were trying to solve, that we may literally be the only group that identifies certain problems because we're the only one. Even when when you're in elected office, the charter by hunt and peck section. The section
you've been there.
That bother you. Why? Because something came up. You're like, well, what does the charter say? And you read it, but you don't read it as a whole. So when we're done with this piece, we'll then need to kind of figure out not just how we do the parking lot, but probably the parking lot plus, right? What are the issues we identified, and what are the other kind of bigger things we think we should do. Because Lauren, when do we have a report due to the Board of Selectmen?
I'll have to look. I don't think they gave you guys a specific date on your charge. Let me
Yeah,
check.
I don't believe it's within this calendar year.
It just says, it does say by the end, well, let's just make sure that we didn't take that one out. By the end of 2021.
We have to report to them.
Yep.
So by that time, we should easily have the once through and be done with sort of the first round of parking lot issues. And for the report to them, what does that actually mean? Should we just all appear at a meeting in some
Yeah.
form? Okay. So, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you see if we can get on their agenda for their first meeting in December, sort of circulate it around to this group. Let's kind of get ahead of that. So we're not doing it 2 weeks before Christmas when I don't want to see anybody. I'm usually running around doing the things I wish I would have shopped for in November. Don't tell anyone, even though we're being recorded. So maybe we can do it then. And we should at least have the once through and probably some other big items done.
Joe, are we at risk at all as a commission, as an ad hoc commission with a potential change in leadership in town? Or now that we've started, that we will see this through?
Yeah, I mean, we're still charged, so we wouldn't be dissolved to the extent that and the two people who are running for first selectman, we've both spoken to.
Yeah.
So, and once you form and create a charter commission, it generates a report. I suppose the bigger problem is that if the construction, well, and the other person running for the seat is Noreen, who surely knows what we're doing.
Mhm.
So I think the resilience of the mission of the Charter Review Commission is probably pretty strong.
Good.
I mean, anybody can have a change of heart, but I wouldn't think so. And I think a good part of what we're doing, knowing that group as I do, and Lauren, you might have Lauren, I don't want you to even comment on this section. But I'd be surprised if the entire board would be, take great issue with the types of things we've been doing and the issues we've been identifying. I mean, you can run to some things. For instance, you might have a very different view on the scope of emergency powers. One of the things we had started to get into. I doubt that you'll have a town manager concern. The Board of Selectmen is not really going to want to get into that. And I would be surprised if they took big objections to the terms, which is one of the other big things, but maybe.
Mhm.
But we'll also, one of the nice things about getting a report from them, we'll sit with the entire group in December. We'll find out. Well, that will be the group, and we should probably spend some time in November of putting a good report together and make sure that each of us has a chance to speak about different sections. So it's not just, my droney voice talking.
The one thing that will be affected if Noreen is elected is that she will no longer be able to serve on this committee.
Well, then she will have dropped off. Well, yeah, but it'll be up for her to replace it. So,
Yeah.
So for our perspective, we'll be exactly the same and one person down because she'll have to resign immediately the following Monday after the election.
Yep.
Good. And in terms of one of the things I'd like to do when we're done with our first run through and we've identified the parking lot issues is we should do another public hearing. So I haven't kind of wanted to talk about that until we're done with this run through. So we're obviously not going to make any progress on it tonight, but that would probably mean I want to say around the end of October then, Lauren. I wouldn't want to schedule any earlier.
Yeah, I think it would be nice if we got through front to back and then came up with some binary choices or three choices saying, that this is a sticking point. Do we want option A, option B, or option C, or do we just want to have public discussion around that? But at least that it's well articulated for the public. So I agree.
Yeah.
What are some of the strengths and weaknesses of these two or three options on something? And
Yeah, and maybe
listen.
what we could do is sort of spend time dividing up our own issues from what we've seen, because some things no one's going to care, whether we put bullet points or paragraphs. It's important, but not for the group. But for the key question items, length of terms,
Mhm.
if we kind of go through it and how we're describing it, I'd be surprised if when we get to the end, if it's more than a dozen issues. I doubt it's even that many.
Yeah,
And since the reporter was kind enough to give us some time, maybe at that time we could sort of push that forward as the issues we'll be talking about and see who comes.
good idea.
Is there a natural time in late October for us to do this, Lauren?
So I can tell you the days that are not good. The 25th is not good. 26th is not good. So that would leave you the 27th or 28th, which is a Wednesday or a Thursday.
I would have to do the Thursday. I'll be teaching that Wednesday night.
Okay.
So that's the Thursday before election.
Or we can go the week prior to the 21st, which is a Thursday before that.
I can do either of those. Do either of those
Both
bother?
work for me, whatever you guys.
Yeah, I'm checking now. October 27th, 28th,
21st or 28th.
21st, 28th.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, works for us.
So Lauren, if you got a minute, maybe you could circulate that out to the rest of our compatriots.
Yep.
And probably it's good to do it before the election. That way we know Noreen will be here with us. And we'll see how the election goes.
Actually, Lauren, let's ask you the first question that Joe asked, because I feel like you're State Farm. You know a thing or two because you've seen a thing or two. How reflecting on what we've been doing, how do you feel about this?
No, I have to echo all of your comments. I think, I've only been involved in one other charter review committee process, but I don't think that the first initial review was this thorough. I think the first initial review then really focused on what people had said was a problem and kind of just went like section by section where there might have been a problem, instead of what you guys are doing, going through the entire document and really reading it as it progresses. I think you've caught some things that even we on staff just ignored because they weren't problems that we had with the document. But you've caught some inconsistencies that because we didn't read it in chronological order, we didn't really pay attention to here. So I definitely think that you've gone through a process that's given the public probably the most information on just how much is in the charter.
It's also a little distressing how much really does seem to need help.
Mm-hmm.
When you really look at it.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
they're not life or death things, but it's
just
the number of times we've caught sentences like, wait a minute, how does that make sense? I like it when Liz does that pretty periodically. We'll be talking about something like, I'm having a problem here. And she goes, yeah, and that doesn't make sense with this. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you're right.
You see her paper shuffling around and she goes right for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a good mix. All right. Well, what I would suggest is, we'll continue to do this. We're still into the tricky part, BOS, BOF. And to be perfectly blunt, I mean, I know you guys are sick of hearing me say like, oh, I've been on both, but I'm not really sure exactly what to do, when we talk about it. So I'm looking forward to that discussion because it's not perfectly clear to me. Like I thought we did a really good thing with the last time with the 10-year plan, getting rid of the faux 5-year plan and saying, look, we have one plan, because that was a change made, of some years ago. But in terms of defining the responsibility so that we don't get over it, well, I think we're just going to need to talk about it, and I think this isn't, when we get to that part, I think it's an occasion where Noreen, Joan, and I are less helpful because we know how it's supposed to run. You know what I mean? Because of course it ran perfectly when we did it. You know what I mean? But that's very different than the ways it can run, you know, so we'll have to chat it through.
You know, to that point, Joe, that's where my thinking has changed. When we first started this off, and I think it was very heavy on the Board of Selectmen side, and thinking about how we need to claw back some, you know, power back to the Board of Selectmen from Board of Finance. But actually, after talking with them and our discussions, I'm realizing just how much of a balance has to be there. So that's something that's evolved for me, which I'm glad we've had all these discussions and brought people in to speak. It's been great. And we're bringing in Justin, you know, surprisingly last time. That was great.
No, it was great for him to pinch hit. Yeah, I mean, you know, I know I've said it, but it's true. From either seat that I held, you could create a lot of uncertainty with the other board. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be precision, but it's not weighted one way or the other. Because there's always a great argument. The Board of Finance should determine if we can afford something, but the Board of Selectmen will determine what the topic is. But try and separate those in your head. Like, okay, if we can afford it to do what? Build an ice cream plant? Well, no elected official is going to, as much as I would like one, no elected official is going to vote for it. So, you know, we should do what we can to kind of at least make sure we have the process clear, you know, but we'll see. Well, good. Well, we're hitting 30 minutes. It's probably the outer bound of what I like to do with informal discussion with a subcommittee, which is effectively what we are at the moment. Lauren, do we have any additional members of the public?
Just the initial member, and they do not have their hand raised.
Well, thank you, initial member, for coming.
Yes, disappointed as you may be.
Yeah. All right, we cannot approve minutes or take action otherwise then, nor can we even dismiss. And so, you know, when is our next meeting, Lauren?
You do not have one set up. This was the last one that we
well,
did.
then this kind of really ends the whole thing. See you guys.
So
So I run into a bit of uncertainty what would be the weeks of the 30th and the 6th as the semester begins. And I'm sure a lot of people with kids in the beginning of school are going to be like, ugh. Oh, do we want to try for something like on the 24th or 25th of August?
Sure. That's at least for Madison, it's the school starts the next week. That works for me, but
I'm trying to think of
it's heavy vacation time, but if you guys are going to be around,
how's that
we
work?
can ask.
Yeah, 24th is best for me out of those 2 dates.
The what?
24th, the Tuesday.
That's fine for me.
Lauren, would you mind circulating that around and see if we have people? Because otherwise, I know we won't be meeting those next couple of weeks. We have Labor Day and school starting up, and and I'll have my own school beginning frenzy. So, so maybe we'll see if people are available then. And if not the 24th, and Matt, you said the 25th wasn't so good.
Yeah, I can make it work, but yeah.
Well, is the 26th easier for you by any chance?
No.
Okay, so let's stay off that then. All right, let's just try the 24th.
Wait a second. I just thought of something. No, it turns out that is fine. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to tentatively put it in for me, and let's see if it works for the group.
Great.
Okay, excellent. Well, Lauren, if I don't see you before then, thank you very much. And I hope you get a little time off for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I'm actually on vacation until the 23rd.
Well, so, then what?
Well, like that week before to the 23rd. So on the 24th, I'll be here if that's when you guys do your meeting. But if I'm, half out of it, it's just because I had to come back from Rhode Island with, 2 children and 1 grown child. So.
Okay.
I can't imagine why that would be stressful. I'm shocked to hear this, Lauren.
Great, Lauren.
All right, good. Well, we'll try for the 24th. Otherwise, if that doesn't work,
stay safe, guys.
Yep.
See you, everyone.
Appreciate it.
See you.